broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you. Whether you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years, there is something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level.
You make this show possible by clicking through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. The next time you order online, go to AR15podcast.com and click through our Brownells and Amazon affiliate links. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and a small portion of your sale goes to supporting pro-gun radio like the AR-15 podcast.
How are you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Another episode of the podcast. We're at number 156, and we have three extra folks on with me tonight, two special guests. We have Michael, who's from the Competitive Rifle Podcast, and Michael is an old AR-15 listener, alum, and a current, and I guess for a long time now, probably well over 2 years now, podcaster on the network.
Yes, I've heard all of your podcasts, starting from one when you were on with Jake Chandler.
Yep. Well, let's see. We have Anthony, who is the behind-the-scenes magic that makes it all go round and round, so that every week you all get a chance to listen to us instead of listening to dead air.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Love Anthony.
And of course, JD's with us. JD and I both had a chance to go to SHOT Show and hang out with Anthony and Michael. So we are going to cover some of our post-SHOT Show thoughts and observations and just have a general discussion for you. But guys, I'm going to give you a math quiz. So what is the significance of tonight's episode?
3 years.
Up! JD, you are such a genius. Look at how fast he did that.
Da 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 da.
I think he was cheating. I think he already knew.
We've been on, well, we've had 3 years worth of episodes. I think we're about a month over 3 years in terms of the calendar, but you know, that's a pretty darn good thing. I think one of our early pieces of feedback was, what are you guys doing? You can't do this for more than 8 episodes. And so I guess we've been able to keep the light burning, and of course that's a good thing for everybody. So, guys, without further ado, let's talk about SHOT Show 2016. I put a LMT here at the top because I had a couple things going on that I really, really enjoyed, and yes, the grenade launcher was one of them, but Michael, why don't you talk to us about the ambidextrous receiver that we saw up there?
Well, sure. I love LMT. I actually met those guys a couple of years ago at a World Shoot, and they're just a wonderful group of guys, wonderful company there. Mr. Carl Lewis is very lucky to have the employees that he does. But Lewis LMT, Lewis Machine and Tool, has come out with a totally modular appendextrous rifle system. They actually call it, that's what they call it, MARS, Modular Appendextrous Rifle System Light. And Reed, you're going to love that thing because all of the controls are appendextrous for a lefty and a righty, and they're easy to use.
You know, the biggest problem that I've always found is that the mag release, all of the solutions are just kind of compromises, big compromises. There's nothing really engineered into it, and I think LMT really kind of took the extra step to engineer that solution into the receiver with consideration for what material had to be displaced and moved and what components had to be modified, so you have a true left-handed mag release. I mean, it's a mag release button that you are pressing with your index finger. It's not a lever, not a cantilever. It's not an attachment to the actual mag retention strut that catches your magazine. So I was really impressed with that.
Yeah,
it was
what?
pretty,
Go
pretty
ahead.
interesting the way that it feels like a normal lower, and then at the same time you have the extra set of controls. So, if you're righty or lefty, the controls are all where they should be. They're not out of place. It's pretty quick to pick up, and like Reed said, hanging some weird thing off the gun to make it work. It feels very natural and very comfortable to use.
Yeah, I'd say the same is true of the bolt release.
Yeah, was my favorite part, is that when you put a scope on a rifle, instead of having to reach across, you've got the ambidextrous bolt release there right above the trigger well. And I never really was a big fan of the bat levers because they go right there through the trigger. But this is absolutely brilliant. The only downside to it is that you can't just buy the receiver. You have to buy the complete lower, which really isn't that bad. It's $5.95 and it comes with their SOP mod stock and a complete buffer system. So you just throw your upper on and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's not so bad. And there is some good engineering in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They thought it out well. They've actually been working on that thing for a while.
Well, and that it shows with the attention to detail they put in there. They had to modify some things on it to make it all work, and I think they did a great job. Tavor. So who got a chance to touch the X95 rifle?
I had a chance to grab it and play with it, and as the Tavor owner, looking forward to it coming out. Kind of makes me want to replace the one I have in my save. What I learned about it is that basically it fixed some of the bulkiness of the original Tavor and works with the reliability factor on some of it. Also, it's just sleek and it feels a lot better in my arms than the one that I currently own. So probably going to be moving on from that old one and into the X95. The rep said probably due out sometime March this year, and they're taking pre-orders, but they didn't say when exactly that would start.
And
they put a new trigger on there.
Yes, I had a chance to shoot them both at Media Day at the range. I think I was the only one of us that went, and it was almost like, for me, it was like shooting an air rifle or a .22. There was almost no perceivable recoil with that 9mm. The trigger was really nice, and I look forward to getting a Tavor with that trigger in it.
Yeah, very awesome trigger. Now, JD, I think you were going to immediately upgrade to the trigger before you sold your old one. But you got a deal on the old one, so you should be selling it for a break-even point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll work, and I'll probably have to sit on it for a little bit before I'm able to jump over. But the cool thing about the triggers, if you have an old Tavor, they're going to start selling the trigger pack 2 in March for $199, which beats a lot of the third-party triggers that are out there for the Tavor. So it'll be basically the same one that's in the X95.
Well, so Battle Arms development. I know that Anthony, JD, you all, and I got a chance to go over there. Michael, did you get a chance to stop by their booth?
No, I did not.
So we did a PDW stock roundup. We had 4 kind of examples, one of which is really more of a folding stock, but I think it does deserve to go into the discussion. But here is a PDW stock by Battle Arms Development that we weren't aware of, and either it's newly released and we didn't get the flyer because we're not part of the in crowd, or we just totally screwed up in our research and missed the. So I'm going to let the
I think the dog ate your homework.
Yeah, there you go. So we're going to have the listeners give us the benefit of the doubt. But, Battle Arms calls it the VERT, as in, I think it's covert or overt. I guess it's covert. VERT stock system. And I would say that it marries the LWRC simplicity in terms of the number of components that have to be swapped out. It doesn't require its own bolts, so that's a positive. It has the quality that you would expect in something like a Troy. I think it may actually be a more significant quality piece. It's definitely a lot lighter, so I think that it may have some titanium components. But you know, it's $450, and it's a very pretty penny to pay for a stock. Especially when you compare it to, I mean, at least the Troy and the NEAA or NEA, they came with bolt carriers or a bolt carrier group. So, you know, at least with those, you feel like you're buying a bolt carrier that you don't really need. So maybe that takes the sting out of it. But, you know, if it is a titanium piece, and that accounts for the absence of weight in it. I can't imagine that is an inexpensive process to get that involved in the stock. But you know, I was really impressed with it in terms of the weight. But you know, I'm looking here on the description, and it doesn't appear to have any
titanium.
No, that is just amazingly light, though.
Yeah, felt really nice on that rifle that we picked up. Nice little SBR that weighs nothing. This is great.
So it's 19.5 ounces. I don't think the NEA or the Troy came anywhere close to that kind of weight. They were a lot heavier. So
Did you get a chance to check out the lightweight rifles that they had there?
I did.
Yes.
I think there was one that weighed like, you know, half a pound.
That's what it felt like. I want to say it was like 4 pounds and ounces. She handed it to me, and I'm like, "Is this real? Is this actually a rifle? Because it doesn't feel like it."
Yeah, I think my kids' Nerf weapons are heavier than that was. So who got a chance to see the SIG optics?
I think we all did, didn't we? Oh, maybe I think JD wasn't with us. Those were awesome. I didn't even know that SIG made optics until my last episode. I was doing a episode on 1-4 optics because that's going to be allowable now for service rifle competition.
And I got to tell you, I was floored by what I saw. I mean, just floored.
I want the red dot.
I thought you wanted the thermal.
Well, that one was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think anything thermal has a pretty cool price tag.
Well, it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't bad. It was only 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have not found an opportune moment to tell my wife one of our children is not going to college. So I don't think that's ever going to be part of my firearms portfolio.
Well, you figure it's only about $250 a month. So you start brown bagging it for a year. There you go.
I think I am going to wait until the kids graduate from college, and then it's going to be like I got a pay raise.
Right.
Hey, send them to college. Just skip the braces. You know.
Yeah, who needs straight teeth? With everything as processed as it is, you just need to suck it through a straw.
Right.
Well, you know, I think that definitely we're going to try to get a couple of SIG optics in our possession through hook or by crook and see what we can do to really kind of convey our impressions of them. I think really among the staff and crews here at the Firearms Radio Network, we have a lot of people that can, you know, put up some optics against optics, and we'll see where they fit. But
I really liked them because it had nice clear optics. They were easy to use. The turrets were all finger tactile. You could pick them up and move them. They'd stay set wherever you put them.
Well, and then they had the one custom turret per scope included in the price. So once you decide what load you want to
Yeah.
go with, you can have them make
Oh
you a turret
yeah.
to match that load.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Absolutely. That is pretty darn awesome.
I guess it's better than my 3x5 card taped to the side of my stock.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That is old school. So, Vortex. Michael, tell us about the Vortex offerings that you were able to peruse.
Vortex, well, I've got to make a confession in that I have become a fanboy of Vortex. I've got several of them right now. I just bought their old Spitfire. I use that to replace my EOTech on one of my rifles. But they have a new Spitfire 2, and instead of having one knob on it to adjust between the red and the green, the 5 different levels, you have almost an infinite amount of settings for brightness right there on the back of the scope, going up and down, choosing the red or the green. And the other scope that they just started this year was called the AMG. The American-made good thing. I forget what the AMG stands for, but it's a scope that is 100% made, they said, from the front to the back. Of course, the price tag on that's about $3,000. And they also added a bench rest scope to their lineup this year. I believe that's about a 12 by 30 power scope, and bench rest shooting, competition shooting, requires very, very fine lines, and they're typically long scopes, so that if you're off a little bit on your alignment with the scope, you'll immediately see some scope shadow. So, and that's probably about another $1,500 scope.
Well, you know what? Considering where Vortex is placed in terms of the technology and the offerings, that's probably comparable to what a $2,500 to $3,000 scope from one of the premier named manufacturers. So, I don't think that's
Yeah. No, they also added a new rangefinder too, a 1500 that goes out to 1500 yards, and they changed the controls a little bit around in their original 1000. They're still both great items, and of course, what I love about Vortex is no risk guarantee. They'll warranty the thing for life. They don't care how you broke it. Just go ahead and send it back to them. But I don't know. I've got a Razor Gen 2 on my 3-gun rifle, and I've been throwing that thing in and out of barrels, and I dropped it one time. I thought I broke it. I picked it up. It was still running. That thing's a tank.
Well, that's what you got to have, right?
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
We all got a chance to go down to Palmetto State Armory, but I wonder if you guys noticed that they have an AR lower that takes the AK mags. So it is essentially similar to Rock River and CMMG's AR/AK offering, but of course it's at Palmetto State Armory's awesome pricing. So I think that's really a nice innovation that we're getting some flexibility in that spectrum, so that you don't have to just go with a kind of top tier lower receiver. You have some options when it comes to quality and pricing. So I'm really impressed that Palmetto State Armory's jumped in with that, and that's certainly something I may investigate. Did anybody else notice that, or was I the only one that had?
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. It was definitely a nice lower. You know, they cut away a little bit at the magwell so you could rock the AK mag in. But yeah, it's coming in at the Palmetto price point, so you're not paying the premium for something like that. So that's an interesting part about it. And, be interesting if that's what you're looking for to get a lower for.
So, one of the things that I think was pretty interesting We talked about MGI's Hydra. I think there was some buzz about it being reintroduced. I'm not really sure what that reintroduction was about, but there are two other manufacturers that had modular barrel systems. One was from LMT and one was from Ruger. And so we already talked about LMT's offering a little bit when we talked about their new lower, but they have an upper receiver that has an interchangeable barrel system with a 2-screw engagement system to free the barrel. And so, Michael, did you get a chance to really get a hands-on or a discussion with any of the engineers about that?
At which one? At LMT or the other company?
LMT.
Yeah, and in fact, I got a chance to do some extensive testing with that. We had for lack of a better term, their AR-15 and their AR-10 version, and we were on the AR-15 version. We were swapping those barrels between a 204 Ruger, 6.5 Creedmoor, 223, and just taking the barrels in and out takes about 60 seconds to do. And what LMT did that was just sheer genius, when you get the rifle, you get a torque wrench with it. And the torque wrench is set specifically for those two barrels that you have to change. Now, on some of these loads, you're going to have to change the bolt, because like the bolt face for the 6.5 Creedmoor is larger than the 223. But that's about it. And I was surprised, even after swapping those barrels and putting it back on, we were shooting across the valley, I was still hitting a half IPSC size target, which is about, I don't know, 12 by 18 inches tall, and at 450 yards. We're dinging away. It was the most amazing thing I ever saw. And then with actually I got their catalog over here. I can look up, see what the actual model number is. Their 308 modular weapon system, MWS. With that one, we did the 308. We did a 6.5 Creedmoor and something else I can't remember. But same thing. We had 94 scopes on there. We're changing those barrels, changing the bolts, throwing it back in, and it remains accurate.
Yeah, that's stellar.
What I wanted to do is CMP has a match for foreign weapons, and people are mainly showing up with like Mosins and other weapons like that. Well, LMT is used a lot by the British SAS and the New Zealand Armed Forces, so I guess that qualifies it for a foreign rifle.
Well, I guess only if you bring it back from overseas.
Yeah.
Ruger had an interesting offering, and I got a chance to look at that, and as did JD. Anthony, you were with me, weren't you? And then didn't we meet JD up there?
Yeah,
and then, of course, Michael, you were there as well, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Were you talking about their new AR-15 breakdown?
Yes. Well, it's the interchangeable barrel. That upper receiver, the handguard, it was a mono handguard, right?
Yeah, but I think there's only one barrel that comes with that. I'm looking it up right now.
They had a 300 blackout barrel as well.
Oh, yeah, yes, that's right.
I think the idea, like Michael alluded to, is to present a breakdown, but it essentially allows you to take the lower, take the upper, and then take the barrel off the upper, so you essentially have three pieces of about the same length. And I'd say that they would fit in a conventional backpack. You wouldn't have to get one of these kind of elongated, discrete carry backpacks, which I don't know how discreet it is if you have a backpack that's oblong and a whole lot larger than most people's normal backpacks. But with the three components, I think it really does fit into that conventional profile for a backpack that everybody sees. But
yeah,
it's
I don't know if Right. I don't know if you were with me, but I went back there with Sean and Aaron. While I was hanging out with Aaron, I have no idea. At the from the We Like Shooting podcast. Um, but it was interesting that the bag, the takedown bag that Ruger has for the 1022, it was actually designed for this SR-556 takedown rifle, but they didn't introduce it last year. They introduced it this year, and that barrel, if I don't know how much time you had to play with it, the whole thing comes apart with no tools. There's a little lever on the front. You just pull that thing back, rotate it, what was it, about 15, 20 degrees. The barrel comes out, pop off the lower, and off you go.
And that's obviously the LMT's Mars system has that degree of barrel changing, but you're right, it has a tool. You're out there with a tool having to take care of this, but the Ruger system, I mean, I can't remember what the system was to disengage it, but there are some plugs that lock it into the receiver, and there's no other tools. It's a hand-actuated lock and then twist and pull. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just a little thing that you pulled back on towards the front of the rifle, looked like it was right under the gas block at the end of the handguard, but it was pretty fast to take the rifle apart and put it back together.
Now, of course, we mentioned MGI. We've talked about MGI in the past, and here's the thing about MGI. None of us have ever fired one. None of us have ever really tinkered with it. So, I mean, I don't know that we have an opinion, but at this point, we're just cautiously skeptical because the lockup is a little different from LMT and Ruger's. They're, I guess, having some difficulty gaining some traction and market share, so I'm not really sure what that means for MGI. I think JD pointed something out to me. If you're an early adopter to a platform that goes the way of the Dodo, where are you going to go for spare parts? Where are you going to go for service? Where are you going to go for warranty? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to those questions are. I think it's a promising idea, and I don't know that MGI has or has not delivered on it, but I think I'm just going to keep my eyes and my ears to the ground and my eyes open and see where it takes itself. You guys have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting attachment system with the camming the barrel in. It's pretty much two levers attached to things with half rounds cut in it that try and squish the barrel up against the lower. It's kind of interesting. It didn't appear to be geared together, so I could see how you get uneven pressures against the face of the upper receiver. But it was kind of cool because they do have a lot of calibers available for it.
Right. So, once again, I think that it's promising. I want to see someone really kind of get hands on it and toss it around and get rough with it and put it through its paces and be able to come back and say this is great or this is a fail. And until then, I'm going to reserve judgment because I just don't have enough information. But of course, I think that is a pretty interesting thing that they're moving to this idea of something that's a lot more concealable or capable of much more in the field modification. So I think that's a nice direction to see the platform go. So pistol ARs. We've got a couple of things cooking in the pistol AR world. We saw a number of them at the show. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about these with you guys. So New Frontier, JD, is out near you, and in fact, you bought your Tavor there, didn't you?
I bought several weapons there. I didn't get my Tavor there, but that is my
My bad.
go-to gun shop here in Southern Nevada.
They have a new AR pistol caliber lower, and it accepts Glock magazines. But the thing that I thought was most interesting about it is they've developed a bolt hold open system for their pistol caliber ARs. And I don't know that it's common knowledge, but in my experience, there is not an adequate bolt hold open system for the AR lowers in a pistol caliber. But they've apparently solved the engineering aspect of that by putting the components that hold the bolt open in the upper. And I don't have a real clear idea of how it engages, but I think that's a pretty awesome deal. So, JD, what are your thoughts about that Frontier offering?
I'm interested to get my hands on it. We talked to New Frontier while we were there. They listened to the podcast. They're fans, so we'll hope to have a relationship with them in the future and get our hands on some of them and be able to bring them to our listeners. They were pretty excited when they found out that one of the guys here uses their stuff, uses their shop. So I think we'll have a good relationship with them to check out their stuff.
Yeah, so very third person there, JD. One of the guys here.
Well, it could be Anthony. I mean, he's not that far away.
Yeah, it's a whole cross state lines thing, though.
Well, let me tell you what, they're about, from where I live, they're about 40 miles away. It's worth the drive when you find a good gun shop, and a lot of our listeners have their good gun shops. These guys were serving me with customer service long before Reed graciously let me enter the world of the AR-15 podcast. So,
well, good on them. All right, so I was not aware, because apparently I was too starry-eyed and drooling over the AR-AK.
I was going to say, you were playing with that while I was playing with the pistol lower.
Tell me about the pistol lower, Anthony.
Again, it's, they're making a 9mm AR that accepts Glock magazines, so just another company that looks like they're doing the same thing, along the patterns of the lowers along the patterns of the New Frontier. It doesn't look like it has what New Frontier did and put the bolt hold open in the upper. So, wonder how well that bolt hold open is going to work, because it's more of the traditional style that everybody else is doing, which was new and interesting about the New Frontier product.
Right. So we put Lone Wolf down here because they have a pistol AR lower receiver. But, I wanted to mention that once again. I'm very thankful that they gave me an opportunity to get hands-on a 357 SIG upper. So they solved the issues with the 40, and they're going to be putting the 357 SIG upper out as well now that they've solved those issues. And I haven't checked lately to see where they are in that process, but I'm very excited that I had a chance to get my hands on it. New Frontier is going to be, let's see, they are 40 10mm, and what do? They came out with a 9, so I think the 10mm is an extension of the fact that they've got the 40 taken care of. Of course, the 10mm doesn't accept the same mags that you would use to feed the 40 or the 9, so they're going to essentially have, is it 2 lowers, JD? Was that your impression, that New Frontier was going to have 2 lowers?
Yeah, that was the impression I got when we talked to them.
And so, of course, if Lone Wolf ever goes the route of 45 and 10, they'll have to probably follow suit, since they won't be able to sell their standard lower receiver if it's going to have to take magazines that won't fit it. So there you go for the pistol AR lowers. Does anybody know if there is anything coming out that doesn't take a Glock magazine in that kind of arena? Of course, the ubiquitous Colt 9mm and Uzi 9mm mags are, I think, once again, going the way of the dodo. I don't think anybody's trying to adopt those as standards.
No. I forget what a Chris takes. I don't know if they take Glock. Yeah, the Chris takes the 33 round Glock mags.
Yeah. See, you get that market share, and everybody has a Glock mag, and you might as well make a rifle that'll use it, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of excited that Brownells has a new offering, and I'm interested to experiment with the idea of another build. But Brownells now has a true to its original form A1 upper and lower receiver. They're stripped, and the lower receiver is actually marked the way the original Colts were marked, except for instead of Colt, it says Brownells. So
neat.
all of you got to have an A1 clone build. Fans out there, all of your needs have just been answered. And you know what? I will say that when it comes to Colt, there is a premium, I believe, that one has to pay to get Colt uppers and Colt lowers. So I really do enjoy this offering, just in spirit from Brownells, to sidestep the idea that you're going to pay a premium for the Colt name being involved in your upper or lower receiver. So I think that's really nice. And in addition to that, they have an A1 pencil barrel with a 1 in 12 twist. So they're going real old school.
Yeah.
So, I think really...
That's the only reason to get a Colt, is if you're nostalgic. Nobody uses them for competition because they're freaking aluminum cans. Their customer service sucks, and they're overpriced.
Well, you see, it's that premium there.
Yeah.
So, So,
I wonder
I think
how he
that's
really
pretty
feels
awesome.
about
We
that.
we call them the C word. It's.
Well,
Is this where Rita's going?
Excuse me, I had a Jeremy moment there.
The views expressed by Michael do not reflect those.
From the
Do we need to take a
rooftops.
timestamp for when I go back and edit this?
So, I think one of the really big head-to-heads that I saw there was the concept of the lightened 308. I just completed a build, and the 308 is a heavy, heavy rifle. There's no getting around it in terms of
No, it's not.
the weight that you have in the barrel, the weight that you have in the receiver, the weight that you have in the bolt. It's just more substantial, and it's beefier than the AR. But Daniel Defense and Mega Arms have both come out with lightened 308s that are really, really substantively lighter than what you would find in a standard build. And I'm thinking, I think both of them are sub 8-pound ARs, below 8 pounds, fully implemented ARs. So I think that's pretty staggering. And we saw both of them. I think both of them are works of art. Obviously Daniel Defense has a stellar reputation in their arena for what they do. And I would say that where Daniel Defense has durability, Mega Arms has elegance, and that's in the appearance. I know that they are both durable rifles. They are both well-built rifles, and they both shoot great from all indications that we have seen and everything that we have been privy to. But I think Mega Arms has some finesse to the way that they're made, and I think Daniel Defense is trying to appeal to a different angle. And so I think there is a place for both of them. I'm just, not sure that everybody is going to be able to have both of them.
Yeah, and Daniel Defense is a great company with some great employees too. I've got to shoot their weapons several times, and just love them. Yeah, their sales reps are great, and I'm trying to find that rifle right now because I didn't see it there, the Daniel Defense booth. Because when I got there, I found an old friend, and we started talking, and then we walked away. It's like, hey, I came here to look for something here.
It's the DD5 V1.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I want that. Well, no, I don't. I just saw the price list.
So, we had a chance to talk to another one of our old SHOT Show frequent flyers, and that would be primarily weapons systems. So PWS has come out with their Mark I Mod 2, and I think that they, like a lot of the other companies, are really beginning to come back to their original designs and re-envision what it is an AR should be. LMT, Ruger, Palmetto State, New Frontier, Daniel Defense Mega Arms, primary weapon system is leading the pack with the rest of the big dogs with their Mark I Mod 2. But it really is pretty stellar in the way that they've done their piece of re-engineering as well. It's gone the route of ambidexterity, ambidextrous controls, ambidextrous bolt release. They've really kind of beefed up the game with their polylithic upper receiver. They have, of course, reimagined the buffer tube and the castle nut and the end plate that you would typically see in a rifle build. And I think those innovations are really going to be kind of driving the field in some ways. So I'm interested to see, how these folks begin to mold and lead the rest of the rifle makers. But we got a chance to hold and take a close look at the Mark I Mod 2, and I'm suitably impressed. I don't know. Did you guys get a chance to do that? I think by that point we had pretty much thoroughly worn out JD, and I kept irritating Anthony by handing him stuff that I was carrying every time I wanted to hold something. So.
Yeah, I end up holding stuff. I'm like, well, I want to hold the rifle too, and I'm like, and then I have all of Reed's stuff.
So I apologize for that. I just didn't think Stacy would hold it. So.
Yeah. Reed, going back to that Daniel Defense DD5 V1, did you look at the face of the new bolt that they developed for that weapon?
Is that the re-engineered bolt?
Yes, it has 2 ejectors on it.
Yeah, I had a chance to look at that.
In fact, it's rather interesting. If you look at it head on, it looks like a smiley face. You got 2 eyes, a nose, and a smile there for the extractor.
Yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to notice the smiley face on that.
You're right.
So have a nice day. Have a nice day, Ahmed.
Really when it comes down to all of these kind of new rifle offerings, I think they're really pushing the envelope. And this is just kind of an aside. When it comes down to it, I think that the companies that we're talking about here are really trying to differentiate themselves. We've got a lot of companies trying to innovate in ways that will separate them from the competition, and of course that can only be positive. Certainly we hope we don't have another, Keymod, MLOC division, but maybe there's room for 2 of a lot of different things in the field. But the other thing that I think I noticed in general, I think you have a lot of vertical integration. You have companies that used to make parts in a very niche area of the industry beginning to spread their wings based on their successes in those places and integrate companies both above and below. For example, Mega Arms is going to be manufacturing complete rifles. Their lightened 308 is not a receiver set, it is a complete rifle. You have Aero Precision that is beginning to bring companies under a common umbrella that will provide them the capabilities to manufacture complete rifles. And so instead of it being a field of parts manufacturers and a few rifle companies, we may very well have, an array of very, very strong rifle companies. Instead of a handful of, Noveske and Daniel Defense, rifle manufacturers, we may have dozens.
Well, speaking of Mega Arms, I don't know if they had it there at SHOT Show. I had a chance to shoot it last November at the Trichicon Shooting Challenge as they were coming out with a dedicated 22. And
No.
yes, okay. And what I liked about their 22 is that most of these AR-15 type 22s are very light. Their AR was the same comparable weight as a standard AR. The only thing I didn't like about it was the trigger. It was like a rack grade trigger. But other than that, I really liked it. I was looking forward to seeing it again, and I didn't.
Well, we might have to talk to Jason about that, Jason Kearns, when we get him on the show again. So I don't know how many of you listeners have been paying attention, but JW is a big fan of the drone. He likes to fly his drones, and he likes to assist some of his colleagues in the Pennsylvania firearms scene. A lot of the professionals up there that he does business with and get some training from like to utilize his drones for filming and photography. Well, it just so happens that there is some anti-drone ammo out there. Let's see. It was Skynet was the company name, the name of the ammunition. And Anthony, why don't you describe it? And I think this is the one with the metal components within it.
Yeah, it had some metal weights on one end of pieces of string that kind of formed a net/parachute. So you fire it out of a shotgun or a 40 millimeter launcher, and it spreads out, and I think they said up to a few feet wide. It kind of engulfs the drone, catches the propellers, and brings the whole thing down. So it's kind of a cool concept for dealing with a drone. If you miss the drone, the string's supposed to kind of act like a parachute, so it doesn't fall back down with a ton of force. Yeah, so it's just an interesting product for dealing with your neighbor's pesky drone.
There you go.
Yes. Oh, did you notice the the inventor's name of that?
No.
It was John Connor.
I hope you're pulling my leg.
Come on.
The company is.
I put it in the show notes there for you.
And they're
Ballistics Concepts.
Yes.
Ballistic Concepts.
Yes. Shoot us if you want to live.
So I thought that was very interesting. Certainly I don't want to encourage anybody to damage property, but if somebody is, I guess, going to mellow your buzz, then I guess that's a way to take care of your business. So JD and I had a chance to stop by the Otis technology booth, and once again, thank everybody over there at Otis for their support of the show and for their generosity and assistance with basically rewarding you guys, the listeners. And they pointed us in the direction of a company that's up and coming with a product that I'm really rather excited about. It's Flugs. Now, I'm not really sure if you can understand my horrible intonations there, but that's F-L-U-G-Z. So, Flugs. And it's, I guess, a play on earplugs and what? Foam?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure what exactly the Flugs comes from, but it's a pretty cool product for a great price point.
And so what you have is a material very much like the old high school mouth guards in terms of its malleability when hot. You take it, you microwave one ear piece at a time, and when you put it in your ear, the molded material or moldable material is, you press it into the recesses of your ear, and once it sets, you now have form-fitted hearing protection with a pretty standard noise reduction rating of 21 decibels. And so for $25 to have something that, takes 4 weeks, having some guy inject your ear full of cold goo, and a whole lot
Do
more
these
than
have
25 bucks.
do these have those electronic hearing aids installed in them?
No.
No, they're just standard plugs, but they're pretty comfortable once you get them in there and get them molded.
Yeah, I've got a pair of molded plugs that had them made at Camp Perry at the Nationals, and it was a nurse and just went in there, cleaned your ears out real good, and I don't know, it took about 15 minutes to do there.
Well, the ones I got were about 15 minutes of time to have the molds made, but then they had to send the molds off to somebody to make. And so I don't know, was that your experience, or did you have a different process?
No, mine was different. She just had like this little injector thing, and it went into your ear, and it sat there. She lubed the ear up with some release agent and put it in, and sat there about 10-15 minutes, and it just sat. No, they didn't have to send it out anywhere.
Now, did they have an electronic component inserted into it or something?
No, but I've seen them before. I actually ran into one company that was making them, but they were very expensive. They started at like $600 and went up to $2,500.
Yeah, they're pricey.
There is a company out there that makes them. It's a home kit, makes it for a lot less, and the name escapes me right now about what that company is.
Now I know that, Anthony, we won't say any specific details, but you have a rather extensive history with some pretty sophisticated hearing protection, don't you?
Yeah, I've had to have professional molds taken to get in-ear monitors and plugs made. So, know a little bit about hearing protection and getting the molds made and everything about it. Well, like I said, these are cool. They're $25. You can do it yourself, I think, is the big selling point about this. You don't need to go somewhere. Also, if you mess up and they're uncomfortable, you can heat them up again, and they go back to being able to be remolded a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the great thing about them is that, if you drop them in the dirt and stomp on them and really mess them up, put them in your, disposal in your sink accidentally or whatever, it's only $25. That is not any serious heartburn. That is very easy to stomach. So the next big thing that I saw, and Michael, I noticed that you put this in the notes, Geisley has a new scope mount.
Oh, yes. That was actually developed and made on a DoD contract so that you would be able to take your scope off your rifle, do whatever you might need to, remount the scope on it, and keep the same zero. And Bill Geisley, in case you didn't know it, he is an engineer, but he got interested in shooting high power, that nice boring stuff that I do at 2, 3, and 600 yards. And he looks at everything as what is possible, not what is. And the craftsmanship on that is great. They actually make it in 70, 75 aluminum, and then they also make it in another one that has, I had it around here somewhere, lithium in it. So it's strong but light. And yeah, what it is on the bottom of the scope mount. Most scope mounts, extended scope mounts, cantilever mounts. If you look at them, how they're held on to the Picatinny rails it's just the horizontal force of the screw against the mount of the scope, just squeezing it in, and you tighten it down. But all of these normally have some forward and backward play. Well, what he did when he designed his, there's 2 lugs in there that are the exact size to fit in the space between those Picatinny rails. So you put it on, and it's solid. It's not moving.
Well, so I guess that'll tell you pretty quickly if you have some rails that are non-standard or out of spec, right?
Yeah, sucks to be you. Just get standard rails. You know.
Yeah.
Don't save your money. Don't go cheap.
Don't buy anything from China.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, just to kind of put a little bit out there, LMT. Now, are LMT barrels that we have here part of that interchangeable Mars system, or is this another separate offering from LMT, Michael?
I don't see that. The LMT barrels are unique to the LMT system.
Okay. But that's a pretty wide selection of calibers to begin with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you can't get, you know what, if you can't get her done with them, you just can't get her done. Because I believe for the AR one, they also make, it's a 338 Federal. Have you ever heard about that one? It's it's gotten to be very popular on the East Coast, in like my future home of on the East Coast there, in the thick woods. It's a 338 projectile, and it goes into I forget if it's a 308 or a 223 case. Might be a 223 case, and it's accurate out to about 200 yards, but you've got that 250 grain 338 bullet, flying down range, taking out your game.
Well, that 300 blackout almost straightens out the AR cartridge. I wonder if the 338 would finish the job.
Yeah.
Looking at pictures, it looks like it does.
It might be on a 308 case, obviously cut down just like what they do the 300 blackout. And I forget if that one is used in the M16, AR-15 model, or the larger 308 MWS.
Well, we may have to put that in our notes and do a little bit of work and build a show around it. That sounds pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so Geisley has come out with a new single-stage trigger. And I got a chance to pull the trigger on it, literally, mounted in a made-safe AR, made safe by the Geisley and the SHOT Show regulations, and unfortunately, because of that, we couldn't actually get inside. They were very specific about access to the internal components because nobody wanted a rifle that could be made into a working rifle. That would be a very bad thing, given the wrong set of circumstances. But it's staggering. And its feel is amazing. I don't think I have seen its like in AR triggers. Now, of course, you can get some really sophisticated triggers out there that are along the lines of your standard 2-stage, but for a single-stage trigger of this order, I don't think I've seen its like anywhere.
I didn't see that at their booth.
It was in the corner. You had to go and the little people. I wasn't able to go and elbow my way in to see the big scope.
That was over there by the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course, we talked about Tavor's trigger that's going to be coming out in its new rifle, but it's also going to be sold separately to install in old Tavors. The kind of Tavors you feel really kind of sad at having bought and not waited long enough to get one of the new ones. But LMT, Michael, you mentioned that their two-stage trigger is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was surprised. They really worked on that trigger to get it right. I know they've been trying to work on it for about 2 years. I was surprised, especially when I looked inside at how simple it was really designed and how crisp it broke. And there's no adjustment to it. You can't adjust it, and it doesn't need any adjustment. So I might get one of those and give it a try in one of the competition rifles.
You know, I think I may actually try some other triggers this year. I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm still a very big Geisley fan.
Oh yeah, I am too. And what's the sister company? AGS?
ALG.
ALG. Yeah, I got the A right. I think I got a G in there too.
But I've seen some triggers out there that I think are really kind of nice, and I think it might be time to spread my wings and try something new.
Hey Reed, speaking of triggers, remember that booth that was upstairs right by the media room? Was it Elfman?
Yeah.
What was your impression on those?
Well, I think the triggers are really on par with all of the other premium triggers we've seen, and Elfman came out with their push button safety for the AR, and I'm a big fan of the push button safety.
Well, you would like it as a lefty because the thing goes left to right instead of right to left. That's what I didn't like about it, because I kept picking it up and trying to use it like my shotgun. I'm like, it's broken.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome. I like that. But I did get a chance to put their trigger, get a feel for it. One of the trigger blocks that allows you to work those through. But Elfman, really, I think it's on par with the CMCs and the Timneys and the Geisleys. Certainly at this point, there is no shortage of quality triggers. It's just a matter of where you're going to spend your $200 or $300 when you go to buy one. And of course, that's all personal preference.
Yeah, looking at the Elfman triggers, what was unique about them, and didn't really think about it until the guy explained it, their triggers actually ride on ball bearings. Right. Whereas a traditional trigger, you've got the hammer riding over a stationary pin that's pushed into a aluminum frame receiver. So that's why some receivers, like Colts, need anti-walk pins, because you might get those tolerances so big. And I just kind of thought that was genius, and they've got all kinds of different triggers for different applications.
Absolutely. And that whole ball bearing system really does kind of illustrate something. If you were going to talk about being able to push a rifle to the extreme, he was talking, the man that we spoke to, and he was talking about how repeated trigger pulls could essentially wear a pattern into the trigger pin. And yes. So, to the degree that that might become clogged with debris and oil and affect friction and how that trigger is going to move through its progression, when you're a premier shooter, I can only assume that can affect your game, and to take that factor out of the equation, the more factors and variables you can take out of the equation, the closer you can get to purity and in form and performance.
Yeah, and those triggers, he's got some great single-stage triggers. You were talking about another company with single-stage triggers. His AR triggers, and I love Geisley's, but I just had it up here, some of their, like the 3-gun trigger. I was actually doing some accuracy tests with a rifle that's got their 3-gun trigger in it, and it's great if you're slapping it and hitting it like you would in a typical 3-gun match. But for precision shooting, I could always feel just a little bit of creep on that. But I don't feel it in those Elfman triggers. And the prices for the Elfmans are comparable to the Geisleys.
So,
But I really like Bill, so my vote's always going to be for Mr. Money.
So I think that covers a lot of the really big, dip your toe in it kind of things that we saw. Of course, there's probably a staggering number of things that are just and equally as big that we didn't get a chance to see. I know that there are a number of companies that we shook hands, we talked, we exchanged cards. We're going to try to get them on the show, and they may not be.
Voltor. We didn't talk about Voltor.
Oh yes, that's right. Voltor
yeah.
has some new offerings. So let's see. They have a new polylithic upper.
Right.
They have a new handguard, and I believe there is some variation in the A5 system. All of my A5s came with 7-position barrel extensions, or buffer extensions, but I think they have a 6 or a 5 stop A5 buffer extension now.
Yeah, they do. They've got a A5 extension. I got a hold of the woman there. I'd like to get one to demo because rules for high power have changed this year for civilian marksmanship program in the NRA. You can have an adjustable stock for length of pull only, not rise or your cheek rest. And I think that A5 system is going to be brilliant for it because that thing was rock solid when put into position, but you've got 7 different positions that you can put the thing into.
So, when it comes to what Voltor is doing, I think that they're like everybody else that is at the head of the game. They're innovating. They're trying to push their lines to the limit. They're trying to make enhancements on things that, while adequate and in some instances quite good, may not be the best implementation that you could find, or at least in their opinion so. And I think that that's really where the industry is going to be forced to go, simply because to stand still means to, I think, die in this industry.
Right. I also ran into, after hours, one of the public relations people there from Voltor. They also said they're going to hire Vanna White for a spokesperson so that they can get another vowel.
Yeah, the Latin is a little difficult, I think. But,
yeah. Well, it's Latin. It's Latin. It's actually supposed to be pronounced Ultor, but we all see the vol, so it's like Voltor.
Well, and how many of us speak Latin anymore?
Yeah. While booming by Miho Isu.
So, is there anything else that just kind of strikes you guys as being something stellar?
Yeah, you know what strikes me? How many people were there, and how many problems were there? You know what? Just the firearms community in general, doesn't matter if you're a hunter, a professional shooter, a plinker, a collector. Everybody's out there. Everybody's getting along. I mean, even Jeremy was minding himself and getting along with people. And that's huge. That's the biggest thing about the Second Amendment community is how nice and respectful everybody is with each other. We were all asked, don't bring your weapons in here, and we could have, and we didn't. There's no fights. Nothing got stolen. No disturbances. Nobody had to be thrown out. When's the last time you're gonna see that?
Yeah. That's a very good point. There is an incredibly deep cross section of the industry there, and by and large, it was an amazingly, exciting atmosphere to just walk around and partake of.
Yeah. I mean, you might not have even noticed it, but like down in the basement, there was stuff that was just for fishing. Didn't have anything to do with the firearms manufacturers.
Well, I'm going to tell you my funny story. So this is
yeah. I gotta tell you mine too.
This is JD's first shot show, and so we were walking around, and I said in passing to JD, I said, really on a basic level, this is just like every other gun show. At some point, we're going to come across a table with someone selling jewelry. And JD looks at me and he says, if you find jewelry, I'll only believe it's a gun show if you find me a remote control helicopter. And I tell you, we ran across a table selling jewelry. And JD had a look on his face that was priceless. If I'd had a camera, I would have snapped a shot. But the best part is when I found the remote control helicopter.
That dungeon's a scary place down there sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Michael, tell us your story.
Okay, so anyway, I had some friends that I was planning to meet out there for dinner, and they've just hired this wonderful guy, a very accomplished gunsmith and a Cerakoter and an artist, and he's really helping them out with their business. Well, his name's Anthony, and I had just texted them about meeting them for dinner. And then I got a text, and it just says, hey, this is Anthony, plans for dinner? And I'm emailing Anthony, I'm like, yeah, I'm meeting, and I have their name. And then I'm emailing the other people. I'm saying, well, is Anthony with you? And they're like, well, not right now. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? So this email is going on for about 10 or 15 minutes. I think I finally asked Anthony. It's like, Anthony, are you with Eric and Kim? And he goes, who are they? I was going nuts because I was trying to get out of my room, but it's like, well, I don't know where to go. Because I've emailed Anthony several times, and he's put up with me and my ineptitude and this editing stuff. And so it was really nice to finally meet him.
Yeah, it was nice to get to go and find a place and have dinner and talk for a while.
Oh, right, yeah, and we're going to be taking Anthony out to my range. I'm going to get him shooting at 1,000 yards and see how he does.
Well, so Anthony, do you have a funny story to convey, or should I go to JD?
Oh, we'll go to JD. That was kind of my funny story. Was the whole text message conversation? No.
He probably thought I was an idiot.
JD, you gotta have a few. I know you've been observing my quirks the whole SHOT Show, and then of course there was the entire SHOT Show, so there's got to be something there.
So following Reed through this, just taking his lead and finding a way to cut through crowds. Anytime somebody was walking towards us, Reed did this Jedi mind trick, and all of a sudden people would walk around him, like just, the big guys, little guys, didn't matter. People, women, children, animals, they would just walk around him. It was the greatest trick ever until he stopped and he did it right in front of me and I almost ran him over. Besides that...
That's because Reed looks like a grumpy gnome, that's why.
That and one of us had a special diet that we had to adhere to while we were at SHOT shows, so waitresses eating buns and other things were the keywords and phrases that'll stick forever.
Yeah. My wife decided I needed to be put on a diet. I've been grumpy for 15 days, so I think she is contemplating taking me off the diet. I am determined. I am going to follow through on this.
Yeah.
She's a
Well,
great support.
Yeah. Well, we can vouch for you.
So, Anthony, you sure? You got no gems in there?
Just the you handing me stuff, and what am I gonna do with this?
Well, I see. I like the one where we were walking through the crowds, and I think a stunner walked by, and Anthony noticed her, and I said, "Anthony, cool your jets. I'm sporting a dad bod." I don't see, that was the reaction they had then. I don't know why everybody giggled, So I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, and then apparently you told me I almost ran over Cy from. I didn't even see him.
Yeah, we walked by. We almost took out the Duck Dynasty guys.
Well, did you guys use my Jedi mind trick?
No, I just keep going forward.
I was gonna say I just work at a place where there's a lot of people, so I just walk through crowds. Doesn't faze me.
Well, and you see, you guys are the two extremes. So Anthony, you've got that, agility and bob and weave, that you get from being slender and fit, and JD is built like a mountain of a man, and I don't know that there is anybody at SHOT Show that JD would have not been an obstacle to had they come upon him. I mean, he is just, you're like what, 8 foot tall, broad at the shoulders. You're like that song. Guy that goes into the mine.
John.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I think it was a great SHOT Show. I think the industry is thriving. I think it's alive. I think it's well. I think that you got some really great companies in there. You got up-and-comers, new innovators, and you've got some old classics that are trying to reimagine themselves in new positive ways. And right in the middle, you have the guys that are leading the pack, that are beginning to kind of stretch their legs and get some the wind behind them, and they're really beginning to go like mad. And those guys are building powerhouse companies. They're integrating complementary companies. They're bringing on quality, skilled people to help them kind of take it all to the next level. And I don't think it's going to end anytime soon for the black rifle. Definitely not for the firearms industry. And I think as a whole, all is well and good in the union today when it comes to things that we saw at SHOT Show.
Well, yeah, more and more up-and-coming companies, the mom-and-pop shops. I ran into another, well, right next door to that, Elfman Triggers, was Carolina Arms Group.
Oh, yeah, with those 1911s.
Oh, he's a vet. Oh, I just loved his 1911s. I'm working out a trade with him on something I've got, and he's got something I want, and I got something he wants, and what I got you can't get anymore. So probably going to be getting one of his 1911 pistols. And even though I'm a competitive rifle, I'm going to have Mark on to talk about his company, because it really is a success story, how he's taken off in such a short period of time.
Being there for the first time and meeting everybody, it was an eye-opening experience. Everybody said it's massive. Well, just take massive and times it by 10, because it's huge. But Michael's right. Everybody was nice. Everybody, we connected with. A lot of people are listening to the AR-15 podcast, listening to the Firearms Radio Network, and they realize that this is one of those new technologies that's going to grow with the firearms industry. So it was really cool to make those connections, and I think we're going to be talking to a lot of those innovators and leaders in the next year and a half or so here on the AR-15 podcast and across the network.
Absolutely. Anthony, you're going to close it out for us. Say something profound and deep.
No, it was a great show as always. It's awesome being around. I don't remember what the attendance number was this year, but it's around 75,000 people that go, being around a bunch of firearms people. It's a great time. You get to see a lot of fun stuff. Everybody's nice, and at the end of the day, we're just all there because we're looking at guns. And hopefully we can turn some of that around and bring it to you guys listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I saw you at the Century Arms booth. You just weren't looking at guns there. Well, maybe. Okay.
Trying to keep it profound here.
I take that back.
Well, any last thoughts?
Can't wait till next year. Can't wait to try out some more of those parts, and really want to thank Anthony for all the work he does, because I really don't do the Google Hangout stuff, so I really rely on him for all the editing that he has to do.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys for making SHOT Show a really pleasant experience. You know, it's fun to hang out with y'all. Don't get a chance to do it very often, but when we do, it's nice.
Yeah.
So
at least now I know JD's up there in Las Vegas. Anthony's over here by me, so we'll have some more get-togethers.
So we do have some Otis winners. JD, do you have a short list for us?
I do. We need to hear from Joseph Dowdy. We need to hear from David Gonzalez, Joe Brokenhagen, and Barack Obama all need to contact us before Reed decides to end the grace period so we can hook you up with your Otis technology stuff.
Yep, we want to get it all shipped out. Otis is a great company, and I don't want you guys to miss out on an opportunity to use their gear. Otis Technology is, really, they stepped in and provided an awesome package for us to give away to you guys. So please get a hold of us. I don't want you to miss any of it. All right. I think we've had really just a pretty good show. I think we've talked about a whole lot of things. We have had our heads so involved in trying to get a round shot, get through shot, get a shot covered in terms of what our mission was, which was to make connections with people, to bring them on the show. So we don't have any feedback this week. So we're going to just leave it like that. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and close out the show. And Anthony, you want to read us out?
Sure. So send any questions or comments to feedback at the AR-15 podcast. You can also leave us a recorded voicemail using the SpeakPipe plugin on the right side of the AR-15 podcast. I still don't believe we've had anybody do that, and be fun for a change. Remember to subscribe and listen to the AR-15 podcast for free in iTunes or on Stitcher, and leave us a review so the show can place higher in searches for potential listeners. Share your pics on Instagram at AR15 Podcast and tag your pictures with the hashtag AR15 Podcast. You can also go there and see some of the fun pictures that we took at SHOT. We got some fun stuff up there of us playing around with rifles. Check out some of the stuff that we got to see. Check us out on Periscope at the AR15 Podcast for quick live videos for cool events or casual conversation about ARs. Follow us on Google Plus to watch us live. Check out our YouTube page and Facebook and all the fun stuff. Remember to check out the other podcasts on the AR-15 or as well as the AR-15 podcast on the Firearms Radio Network, including the Competitive Rifle podcast, which Michael hosts. Don't forget to use our Brownells affiliate links for all your AR-15 parts at ar15podcast.com/parts, and use the Amazon affiliate links at firearmsradio.tv and ar15podcast.com to help you find awesome things for the AR-15. All right.
That's it. That's great. Now you know why I always make JD read that. All right. Once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for a great SHOT Show, listeners. We are dedicated to bring you some good content this year. So you guys have yourself a good week, and we will be back soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Goodbye.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.